Well, welcome to Autumn Eve.
Yeah.
Autumn Eve, yeah, tomorrow is the vernal equinox, or the autumnal equinox, excuse me.
Yeah,
Tomorrow afternoon at 1:19. So we'll have that same amount of light and the same amount of day. But that means we're going to be marching towards the shorter days. More importantly, Halloween! Yay!
I love Halloween.
But seriously, we live in a region where we do have the four seasons. And so we get to experience that change, that reminder of the cycles of life. Right? And so a lot of people that move away from these type of regions miss that aspect. I mean, might not miss the cold, but you know. So the reminder is really a spiritual exercise, in my opinion. Now, in the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 8, Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And he also repeats it, or it's repeated again in 21:6 and 22:13. So Jesus was really trying to make a point. Now, the Old Testament was written in Aramaic and in Hebrew, but the New Testament was written in Greek. And so the Alpha and the Omega are the first and the last letters of that Greek alphabet. So, what point was Jesus trying to make? In metaphysical context, we know that Jesus Christ consciousness is within all of us. I think that's part of what he was telling us. He's the Alpha, the Omega. He's us. We're him. We're one. We're connected. Last month I was at a place called the Omega Institute, and it's in New York's Hudson Valley, lovely area. It's a beautiful area where there's a retreat center, and it's in the foothills of the Catskills. And the Omega Institute took their name from writings of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who's a 20th century Jesuit priest. And he was also an evolutionary biologist. And he spoke of something called the Omega Point, or the point of unity which all of life is evolving to. He described a movement toward unity, balance, and wholeness in an individual and in a culture. Might not feel that way right now, but kind of like the yin and the yang of us that Sun Dragon was talking about. We have the yin and the yang of culture, so we're, the balance is shifting back and forth. Omega Institute's vision is a world where all people can awaken to their full potential while caring for each other and for the earth. Sounds pretty cool, don't you think? So the Hearth Summit I was at was described as part of a global movement to inspire and advance well-being. And since 2023, this organization has actually held 20 different regional summits around the world, 5 continents, in collaboration with the Harlem Wellness Center and the Wellbeing Project. And the summit was described as 150 change makers, artists, educators, business people, governmental people, and nonprofit leaders for an immersive, transformative experience to help us learn how to empower ourselves more and to come back to our communities and drive positive change. I had to be accepted to this one. I had to apply. I was really shocked when I was accepted. I was excited. But a common thread, it was really interesting, a common thread in this program was resistance. And I just remember thinking, wait, now what has resistance got to do with the Omega's mission of movement toward unity, balance, and wholeness within the individual and the culture? Well, sometimes you have to resist others' attempts to divide. We are the peacemakers. We speak our truth in a loving way. to create connection. For instance, Seth Goldman spoke. He's the founder of Just Iced Tea. Has anybody heard of Just Iced Tea? It was one of these, he plays with words. So if you say it fast, it sounds like Justice Tea. It's a line of organic, fair trade bottled tea. And then he also created Honest Tea, which sounds like honesty. And he loves the wordplay. And he's also chairman of the board of Beyond Meat and chairman of something called Mission Guardians of Tony's Chocolate Colony. And if you ever had a Tony's chocolate bar, you can get them at, the shopping center, Trader Joe's. You can get them there. They're really good, actually. But this is an international chocolate company who's committed to creating an exploitation-free supply chain. And now, it's really hard to do such a thing in a business where, and he does that with his tea also, that you get your raw materials, your cocoa leaves or your tea leaves, from areas of the world that are heavily exploited. Now, Seth led a discussion about stakeholder-driven capitalism versus shareholder-driven capitalism, which means instead of the shareholders being the ones driving the show, the stakeholders, the people who live in the areas where the raw materials are from, the customers who are going to be receiving the product, et cetera, the workers, et cetera. It's really, really uplifting and hopeful that there are people out there trying to change the system. They're resisting. So it's hard though, and he keeps putting one foot in front of the other, resisting the pressure to conform. Another speaker was the past Metropolitan Museum of Art director, Carrie Barrett. And she was also with an artist named Chi Nguyen. And they were doing creative arts sessions focused on resisting pressure to conform. And no, I did not attend those sessions with my unrecognizable stickman drawings. But one of the sessions that really rocked my world was Dr. Richard Davidson. So he likes to be called Richie, kind of hard to do, but he's an expert and a trailblazer in the neurology of emotions. You've probably seen him on a news program or an interview somewhere in the last 40 years. He's one of those guys. He's founder and director of the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Now, 40 years ago, in 1992, the Dalai Lama was visiting the United States. And he went to Richie's lab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and convinced Dr. Davidson to dedicate his life to researching the effects of meditation on the brain, to see what was of value to the human community, not just the Buddhist community. What was of value, he wanted him to go out and spread it. The Dalai Lama told him, "You've been using the tools of modern science to study anxiety and depression and fear and all these negative feelings. Why can't you use those same tools to study qualities of kindness and compassion and equanimity?" Boom! So Richie's work, along with Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, his clinical work at UMass Med School, are a big reason mindfulness and yoga have become so accepted in the Western world, even as medical interventions nowadays. How many doctors are telling people, go take a yoga class, go take a mindfulness meditation class? It's happening. Certainly did not happen 40 years ago on this side of the world. Now, Richie at Omega, or Richie, was on a panel discussing generational and intergenerational trauma. And so that's the kind of thing where, if you've had an abusive father, often you become an abusive father. It just passes down the line. And they were discussing how to break that chain. When he dropped the term intergenerational resilience, my brain exploded. I never heard that term or thought of it in those ways. He talked about shining the light into the trauma wound of your intergenerational trauma. Shining the light into the trauma wound and asking ourselves, what were our ancestors trying to bring through that is still undone? What is our job? What did they have us come into this world to do? That instant, everything softened around mine and my mother's relationship. I realized her resilience to survive a dirt floor, cotton picking, sharecropper childhood during the Depression gave birth to me. Now, it made her tough and hard, difficult to deal with, always forever feeling victimized, but she also bucked societal expectations by putting herself through school back in the 1940s. Not real common for women to do back then, and becoming a legal secretary, and keeping her maiden name, for God's sakes, back in the 40s, and she did it for a while, didn't keep it that way, but that was a pretty big deal back then, for God's sake. Now, so by reframing her past, I realized that it was my mom and others like her that built the steps for me and you guys and women and men of my generation, our generation, to climb. To have the opportunity to be the best and most successful me I can be. But as we know, there's still work to be done, both in me and in the culture, and building some more steps, right? So there's more work to be done to reach that point, the omega point that Father Chardin envisioned all those years ago, that point where all of life is evolving to. Yeah, so the relationship between alpha and omega reminds us of that little life cycle. Here we are getting ready to go into autumn, which will, of course, bring winter. But then again, it will bring spring and summer. Together we get to experience life, death, rebirth in all of its beauty. It symbolizes the interconnectedness of all existence, suggesting everything originates and returns to that same singular source. Divine mind, God, all it is, universal intelligence, whatever words you would like to put to it. Divine presence in all aspects of life, from creation to dissolution, including us. Including us. And everyone else, whether we like them or not. So the Alpha and Omega symbolizes our new beginnings and our endings, and they guide us through our journey of self-discovery and destiny. They encourage us to reflect upon our own lives and our life experiences and those of our ancestors. Our affirmation today is, today I remember my higher self, my soul is the Alpha and the Omega. How will you use that affirmation to shine your light into your trauma wounds? How will you use that affirmation to shine that light into your trauma wounds? And what were your ancestors trying to bring forth that is still undone? God bless.